The investigation begins. The conference room fell silent as Agent Thrax placed the data crystal on the central projector. Around the circular table, representatives from 12 different species watched as holographic statistics filled the air above them. Red markers blinked across a galactic map, each one representing a missing person case. Thrax stood tall, his forearms gesturing toward the display. His scaled skin reflected the blue emergency lighting that had been activated for this emergency session of the Galactic Security Council. He had worked for the Galactic Transit Authority for 23 cycles, investigating everything from smuggling to piracy. But nothing had prepared him for this. "Honored members," Thrax began, his voice translator converting his native clicks into standard galactic speech. "Over the past 4 cycles, we have received 6,847 missing person reports. All share one common factor." He pressed a control and the hologram zoomed in on specific transport routes. Every single missing individual last boarded a human transport vessel. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Counselor Vesh, a elderly Quellan with silver tentacles, leaned forward. "That seems impossible. Human ships are everywhere in our space. Surely this is coincidence?" "I thought so too," Thrax admitted. "But the pattern is undeniable. Passengers purchase tickets, board human vessels, submit to standard security scans, and then vanish. No arrivals recorded at destination ports. No bodies recovered. No distress signals ever transmitted." A Drazen representative named Krell spoke up, her metallic voice sharp. "What do the humans say about this?" "They claim the passengers simply changed their destinations mid-journey," Thrax replied. "They say their flexible routing system allows passengers to modify travel plans." "And you don't believe them?" Thrax's eyes narrowed. "In 6,847 cases, not one passenger has contacted family afterward. Not one has accessed their bank accounts. Not one has appeared on any customs record anywhere in known space. They boarded human ships and ceased to exist." The weight of those words settled over the council. Chairman Dorax, a massive being with crystalline features, spoke in his booming voice. "Have we questioned human authorities?" "Yes, Chairman. 3 days ago, I personally interviewed Ambassador Williams from the Terran Federation." The hologram shifted to show a recording. A human woman sat calmly in an interrogation room, her expression pleasant and unbothered. She wore the simple gray uniform of Earth's diplomatic service dot in the recording. Thrax's voice asked, "Ambassador Williams, can you explain why thousands of passengers have disappeared aboard your vessels?" The human smiled. "Disappeared is such a dramatic word, Agent Thrax. Our passengers are exactly where they wish to be." "And where is that?" "Where they're happy." The recording ended. Several council members exchanged worried glances. "That's not an answer," Counselor Vesh said quietly. "No," Thrax agreed. "It's not. Which is why I'm requesting authorization for a covert investigation. I need to board one of these ships myself and discover what's really happening." Chairman Dorax considered this carefully. "You understand the risk? If these humans are indeed responsible for mass kidnapping or worse, they won't hesitate to eliminate an investigator." "I understand, Chairman. But families deserve answers. The galaxy deserves truth." The vote was unanimous. Thrax was authorized to go undercover, equipped with hidden recording devices and a quantum transmitter that could punch through any jamming. If 3 days passed without contact, the Council would send military vessels. That evening, Thrax visited the home of a Quellan family in the lower districts of Station Omega-7. The dwelling was cramped. 4 families sharing space designed for one. This was common on older stations where population had outgrown infrastructure. A young Quellan named Presh opened the door. Her tentacles were pale with worry. "Agent Thrax, you said you had news about my father. May I come in?" Inside, The family gathered around a small table. Precious mother, Delna, clutched a photograph showing a smiling Quellan male. "Have you found him?" "It's been 8 months. "I'm working on it," Thrax said gently. "Tell me again about the last time you saw him." Delna's tentacles trembled. "Jareth said he'd found cheap passage to the Outer Rim, work opportunities on the mining colonies there. The ticket was on a human ship called the Horizon's Edge. He seemed excited. He said he'd send money within 2 months, but he never did. We never heard from him again. We filed reports, but the authorities said he probably just moved on, found a new life. But Jareth wouldn't do that. He wouldn't abandon his family." Thrax made notes on his datapad. This story matched hundreds of others he'd heard. Desperate people seeking better opportunities, lured by cheap tickets on human vessels, then vanishing completely. "I'm going to find him," Thrax promised. "I'm boarding the Horizon's Edge in 2 days." Precious eyes widened. "The same ship? Are you sure that's safe?" "I have to know what happened. For your family and thousands of others." 2 days later, Thrax stood at the boarding terminal of Station Omega-7's main dock. The Horizon's Edge loomed through the viewport, a massive transport vessel with sleek lines and powerful engines. It looked well-maintained, almost new. Not the ship of criminals or pirates. Other passengers waited in line. Thrax noted their species and apparent circumstances. Most were working class, carrying worn luggage, wearing simple clothes. These weren't wealthy tourists. These were people seeking something better. A human crew member checked boarding passes at the gate. She was young with dark hair tied back, wearing a crisp uniform. Her name tag read Chun. "Ticket, please," she said with a warm smile when Thrax reached the front. He handed over his forged documentation. He'd purchased passage to a mining colony in the Corvin system, a journey that should take 12 days. Chun scanned the ticket. "Welcome aboard the Horizon's Edge, Mr. Thrax. First time on a human ship?" "Yes, you're going to love it. Our crew is dedicated to making sure every passenger has a comfortable journey." Her smile seemed genuine, but Thrax detected something beneath it. Confidence? Amusement? He couldn't quite identify it. "I'm sure it will be adequate," Thrax replied neutrally. The airlock cycled open, and Thrax stepped aboard. The interior was impressive. Clean corridors with soft lighting, fresh air circulation, and comfortable temperature controls. Signs posted in 17 different languages directed passengers to various sections. A human male approached, wearing the same uniform. His name tag read, "Rodriguez, Mr. Thrax. I'll show you to your cabin. Follow me, please." They walked through the passenger sections. Thrax observed carefully, his hidden recording devices capturing everything. Other passengers moved about freely. A Drazen family played a game in a common area. 2 Hiver individuals conversed quietly near a viewport. Everyone seemed relaxed. Asterisk. "Here we are," Rodriguez said, opening a door. "Cabin 47B. Food synthesizer is programmed with Quellan nutritional profiles. If you need anything adjusted, just ask the ship's AI." The cabin was small but well designed. A sleeping platform, storage compartments, entertainment console, and private washing facility. Better than Thrax expected for a budget ticket. "Dinner is served in the main dining hall, starting at 1800 hours," Rodriguez continued. "We accommodate all species' dietary requirements. Recreation facilities are on Deck 5, and please, don't hesitate to ask crew members if you need anything." "Thank you," Thrax said. "When do we depart?" "In about 2 hours. Feel free to explore the ship. Just note that engineering sections and cargo bays are restricted for safety reasons." After Rodriguez left, Thrax carefully examined the cabin. He found the standard security sensors, nothing unusual. But when he checked the door, he noticed something that made his scales prickle with unease. The magnetic lock could be engaged from outside the cabin dot. It was subtle, hidden in the door's design. Most passengers wouldn't notice, but Thrax's investigator training caught it immediately. These cabins could be locked from the corridor, trapping passengers inside. He activated his hidden transmitter and sent his first report to the Council. Aboard the Horizon's Edge, initial observations concerning but not conclusive. We'll continue investigation. The ship's engines hummed to life. Through the viewport, Station Omega-7 slowly receded as the Horizon's Edge began its journey. Thrax felt the familiar sensation of a vessel entering faster-than-light travel. They were underway. That evening, Thrax went to the dining hall. The large space was filled with passengers from a dozen species, all eating meals suited to their biology. The atmosphere was surprisingly pleasant. People talked and laughed. Children played while parents ate. It looked like any normal transport journey. Asterisk. Thrax selected a protein gel from the synthesizer and sat alone at a table, observing. That's when he noticed something odd. Some passengers wore different colored wristbands. Most had standard blue bands issued at boarding, but a handful wore green bands. A Quellan with a green band sat nearby. Thrax approached. "Excuse me, friend. I'm new to human ships. What do the different wristbands mean?" The Quellan smiled warmly. "Oh, green bands are for long-term passengers. Those of us who've been aboard more than one cycle." "One cycle? But this journey only takes 12 days. For some destinations, yes." The Quellan's expression became dreamy. "But some of us are going further. Much further." "Where?" The Quellan simply smiled and returned to eating, offering no further explanation. Thrax's investigative instincts flared. He spent the next several days trying to learn more about the green-banded passengers. They were friendly but evasive. When asked about their destinations, they gave vague answers. "Somewhere special. A better place. You'll understand when you get there." He also noticed these passengers had more freedom aboard the ship. They accessed areas marked as crew only. They spoke casually with human staff members like old friends. And they never seemed anxious or worried despite being on a journey far longer than expected. On the fourth day, Thrax decided to explore restricted areas. Late in the ship's night cycle, when corridors were empty, he made his way to the cargo bay section. The doors were locked, but Thrax had brought sophisticated bypass tools. The first cargo bay contained standard supplies: food synthesizer materials, ship maintenance equipment, medical supplies. Nothing suspicious. The second bay made him pause. It was filled with unusual equipment: agricultural machines, atmospheric processors, prefabricated housing units, water purification systems, power generators, medical equipment designed for multiple species. This wasn't cargo for a mining colony. This was cargo for establishing a new settlement. Interesting, isn't it? A voice said behind him. Thrax spun around. Captain Sarah Mitchell stood in the doorway, arms crossed. She was a tall human with gray hair and sharp eyes that had seen decades of space travel. "I was lost," Thrax said quickly, "looking for the recreation deck." Mitchell smiled slightly. "Agent Thrax of the Galactic Transit Authority. Did you really think we wouldn't recognize an investigator?" His hand moved toward the concealed transmitter, but Mitchell raised a hand. "Don't bother. Your transmitter works fine. We're not jamming it. You can report whatever you want. Then you admit you're doing something illegal?" "Illegal?" Mitchell considered the word. "That depends on your perspective. Come with me, Agent. It's time you understood what's really happening here." She led him to the bridge. Through the main viewport, stars streamed past in the distorted colors of faster-than-light travel. But the navigation display showed something that made Thrax's breath catch. They weren't heading to the Corvin system. They weren't heading to any registered destination. According to the star charts, they were traveling into completely unmapped space. Where are we going? Thrax demanded. Captain Mitchell's expression softened. To see the truth. We're dropping out of FTL in 6 hours. I want you to witness something with your own eyes before you make any judgments. I should report this immediately. You can. But Agent Thrax, I ask you to wait. 6 hours. Then decide what to tell your council. Thrax's training told him to activate the emergency signal now, to alert the council that he'd been discovered and the ship was off course. But something in Mitchell's eyes made him hesitate. This wasn't the look of a criminal. It was the look of someone with nothing to hide. 6 hours, he agreed. Those hours passed slowly. Thrax remained on the bridge, watching the navigation displays, trying to determine their location. They were far beyond mapped trade routes, in a region marked as unsurveyed on official charts. Other green-banded passengers began gathering on the bridge. They stood at viewports, talking excitedly in low voices. Some held children. Others embraced. All looked toward the windows with anticipation. Dropping to sublight in 3 minutes, the helmsman announced. The distorted colors outside began to stabilize. Stars snapped back to their normal positions. And then Thrax saw it. Directly ahead, a planet hung in space. Blue oceans, white clouds, green continents, polar ice caps gleaming at the poles. It was a garden world, pristine and perfect, the kind of planet that colonization corporations would kill to control. But it was what orbited the planet that made Thrax's scales rise in shock. Hundreds of ships, all human vessels, all transport ships like the horizon's edge. They circled the world like a protective fleet. Welcome to Haven, Captain Mitchell said quietly. Population 7 million and counting. All voluntary, all free, all living the lives they chose instead of the lives forced upon them. Thrax stared at the planet in stunned silence. 7 million people. A hidden colony. An entire civilization that shouldn't exist. The passengers didn't disappear, he whispered. No, Mitchell confirmed. They found home. Asterisk the truth revealed. The shuttle descended through thin clouds, and Thrax pressed against the viewport like a hatchling experiencing first flight. Below, a city sprawled across fertile river valleys. Buildings rose in architectural styles from dozens of worlds. Quellan spiral towers stood beside Drazen cubic structures. Hyver dome clusters dotted hillsides. Human skyscrapers reached toward the sky. And between them, parks and gardens bloomed with vegetation from 100 different planets. It was impossible. It was beautiful. It was completely illegal. Captain Mitchell sat across from him in the shuttle's passenger compartment. Several green-banded passengers shared the space, their faces bright with joy at returning home. How long? Thrax finally managed to ask. How long has this been here? 51 years since first landing, Mitchell replied. 38 years since we started running regular passenger ships. Haven was the first, but there are 11 more colonies now. All hidden. All thriving. 11? Thrax felt dizzy. That's millions of people. 14 million across all colonies. We're very careful about screening. Not everyone who wants to come is allowed. We turn away criminals, corporate spies, and anyone who might bring the kind of problems people are escaping from. The shuttle landed in a public plaza. As the doors opened, Thrax stepped onto alien soil that felt more alive than any station deck he'd ever walked. The air smelled of flowers and rain. A warm breeze carried sounds of distant laughter and music. Around the plaza, beings from dozens of species moved about their daily business. A Quellan sold fruit from a market stall. Drazen children played a ball game while parents watched. A group of hivers performed street music, their harmonics creating beautiful melodies. Humans mixed among them all, no different than any other species. "This is impossible," Thrax said again. "The Galactic Council surveys all habitable worlds. They control colonization rights. How did you hide this?" "We didn't hide the planets," Mitchell explained as they walked through the plaza. "We hid in the vastness of space. There are millions of habitable worlds in this galaxy. The Council has only surveyed a tiny fraction. We found worlds they haven't reached yet and claimed them for people who need them." "But the laws exist to protect corporate interests and government control," Mitchell interrupted. "Do you know how much it costs to get a colonization charter through the Galactic Council? Billions of credits. Decades of waiting. And priority always goes to wealthy corporations, not desperate refugees. They passed a school where children of multiple species learn together." Through windows, Thrax saw teachers instructing mixed species classes in mathematics, science, and history. "We found something the Council would have seized," Mitchell continued. "Something they would have sold to the highest bidder while millions suffered in overcrowded stations and slums. So we made a different choice. Asterisk, you broke every colonization law in existence. Yes, and I'd do it again." Mitchell led him to a restaurant overlooking the river. The establishment was busy with lunch crowds. At a table near the windows sat a Quellan male who looked up as they approached. His tentacles spread wide in recognition. "Agent Thrax?" the Quellan said, standing quickly. Thrax stared. "Jareth? Presh and Delna's Jareth? You know my family?" Jareth's tentacles quivered with emotion. "Are they well? I've wanted so desperately to contact them, but the rules asterisk. From the Council. From corporations. From anyone who would take this away." Jareth gestured at the windows, showing the thriving city. "I lived in those cramped station quarters for 20 years, Agent Thrax. 4 families in a space meant for one. I worked maintenance shifts for barely enough credits to feed us. My daughter Presh will never have opportunities for education or advancement. The station is dying, but the Council keeps delaying relief because it's not profitable to help us. So you abandoned them?" "I came here to build something better," Jareth said firmly. "I own a farm now. 10 hectares of fertile land. I grow food that feeds hundreds. I earn enough to save money. In 2 more years, I can afford to bring Delna and Presh here legally. They'll have a real home, not a station slum." "Why didn't you tell them that?" "Because if the Council learns about Haven before we're strong enough to defend ourselves, they'll destroy everything. They'll claim this world for themselves, charge millions for colonization rights, and my family will never escape that station." Jareth's voice hardened. "I chose 2 years of silence over watching my daughter grow old in poverty. Tell me, Agent Thrax, which is the greater crime?" Thrax had no answer. Over the next 3 days, Captain Mitchell gave Thrax complete freedom to explore Haven. He interviewed dozens of colonists and heard the same stories repeated in different words. Refugees from dying stations, families fleeing persecution, workers trapped in oppressive systems with no hope of advancement. All had found passage on human ships. All had been offered a choice. All had stayed. A Drazen engineer named Kess explained how she'd escaped a military dictatorship that forced all citizens into mandatory industrial work. "I wanted to design art, create beauty. But my government said I was property of the state. The humans offered me freedom. A young hiver named Zix spoke of mandatory breeding assignments on their overcrowded colony. We're treated like machines. Produce offspring. Work assigned jobs. Die. That's all hiver society allows. Here I can choose my own path. I study music. I create. I live." An elderly human named Marcus described fleeing corporate debt slavery. "I was born into debt on Earth. My parents' debts became mine. I'd have worked my entire life paying interest. The system is designed to keep people trapped. Coming here saved my life. But Thrax also learned about the screening process. Not everyone was allowed to stay. People with violent criminal histories were turned away. Corporate executives seeking to exploit the colony were rejected. Those who couldn't adjust to multi-species cooperation were sent back. What happens to those who are rejected? Thrax asked Mitchell. They're dropped at the next standard port with their memories of this location suppressed using neural dampening technology. It's temporary and harmless. They remember a pleasant journey, but can't recall coordinates or specific details. That's still illegal. Yes, but it's necessary. One person with the right information could do millions. On the fourth day, Thrax met Ambassador Williams. The human woman who had seemed so calm during his interrogation now stood in a simple office overlooking Haven's central city. She wore no diplomatic uniform here, just plain civilian clothes. "I knew you'd come eventually," Williams said without preamble. "Investigators always do. We've had 17 so far from different agencies. Some reported us. Most didn't. Why not? Because they understood what we understood. The galactic system is broken, Agent Thrax. It serves the powerful and abandons everyone else. We didn't create a criminal enterprise. We created an alternative." Williams pulled up holographic displays showing population statistics. Station Omega 7, where you live. Population 6 billion in structures designed for 2 billion. Malnutrition rates increasing. Life expectancy declining. Crime rising. The Council knows this. They've known for 30 years. And they've done nothing because fixing it isn't profitable. She shifted the display. The Drazen Empire. 23 worlds where citizens have no rights. Military dictatorship controls all resources. People live in fear. The Council trades with them freely because it's profitable. Another shift. Hiver colonies. Forced breeding. Mandatory work assignments. No personal freedom. The Council calls it cultural differences and refuses to intervene. "Those are internal matters," Thrax said weakly. "Are they? When governments oppress their own people, shouldn't the galaxy care? Or do we only care about laws that protect property rights and trade agreements?" Williams leaned forward. "We found 11 habitable worlds, Agent Thrax. Empty. Perfect. Waiting. And we asked ourselves a question. Do we report them to the Council so corporations can bid for colonization rights? Or do we offer them to people who actually need them? You chose to break the law. We chose people over profits. We chose justice over legality. And yes, we broke laws. But those laws are designed to keep power concentrated with those who already have everything while billions suffer." Thrax thought of Jareth's family. 4 families in one dwelling. No future. No hope. Just grinding poverty that the Council ignored because it wasn't profitable to fix. What happens now? Thrax asked. "I'm supposed to report back in 3 days. The Council is waiting for my findings." "That's your choice," Williams said simply. "You can activate your transmitter right now. Tell them everything. Within a month, corporate fleets will arrive to claim these worlds. Within a year, everything we've built will be destroyed and sold to the highest bidders. The 14 million people living here will be displaced, their homes seized, their communities shattered. Or you report that you found nothing. The passengers changed destinations voluntarily. The humans cooperated fully with your investigation. No evidence of wrongdoing. You close the case. You're asking me to lie to the Galactic Council. I'm asking you to choose between a corrupt system and real people. Between laws that serve the powerful and justice that serves the powerless." That night, Thrax walked Haven streets alone. He observed families eating dinner together, saw children playing without fear, watched artists creating and builders constructing and teachers educating. This wasn't a prison. This wasn't exploitation. This was a functioning society built on hope instead of desperation. Asterisk, but it was illegal. Every building, every farm, every life here existed in violation of galactic law. Thrax's entire career had been built on upholding that law. His transmitter felt heavy in his pocket. One signal and this would all be over. He'd be a hero to the council, promoted, honored, recognized for exposing the largest illegal colonization operation in history. And 14 million people would lose everything. The next morning, Thrax requested a private meeting with Captain Mitchell and Ambassador Williams. They met in a secure conference room. "I've made my decision," Thrax said. Both humans waited silently. "I can't lie to the council, but I also can't destroy what you've built here." Williams's expression tightened. "Then, let me finish," Thrax interrupted. "You're right that the system is broken, but silence won't fix it. Eventually, someone will expose the colonies. An investigator who does report. A rejected passenger who recovers suppressed memories. A navigation error that brings ships to these coordinates. The secret will come out. What are you suggesting?" Mitchell asked. "Control the narrative. Tell the galaxy the truth. All of it, before someone else does. Show them what you've built. Show them happy colonists living in prosperity. Show them that empty worlds exist, and the only thing preventing desperate people from accessing them is bureaucracy." Williams shook her head. "That's suicide for the colonies." "The council would send military forces immediately, would they?" Thrax challenged. "If 14 million people watched the broadcast alongside the rest of the galaxy? If billions of citizens on overcrowded stations saw an alternative to their suffering? The council's power comes from perceived legitimacy. Destroy that perception, and everything changes." Mitchell and Williams exchanged glances. Some silent communication passed between them. "Asterisk, you're talking about revolution," Mitchell said slowly. "I'm talking about transparency. Let the galaxy decide if your crime was worse than the suffering your system causes. Let citizens across 1,000 worlds see Haven and ask why they can't have the same. The council would still come with fleets. Maybe, but they'd face a population demanding answers. They'd face protests on every station and world where people live in poverty while empty paradise sits unused. You won't face council fleets alone. You'll face them with popular support." Ambassador Williams was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled. "You know what? That's either brilliant or insane. Possibly both." "I know media professionals here," Mitchell added. "Colonists who worked in communications and entertainment. We could produce something powerful." "It needs to reach everywhere simultaneously," Thrax said. "Every world, every station, every ship. Make it impossible to suppress or censor." Over the next week, Haven transformed into a production center. Thrax worked with human technical experts to create a transmission package that could bootstrap itself across the galaxy's communication networks. It would hit news services, entertainment channels, social media, and personal messages all at once. Colonists volunteered to share their stories on camera. A Quellan grandmother described watching her grandchildren starve on an overcrowded station. A Drazen engineer explained fleeing military dictatorship. A Hiver artist showed the creative freedom denied on their homeworld. A human family told of escaping corporate debt slavery. The contrast between their old lives and their new ones was devastating. Thrax conducted the interviews personally, wearing his full investigator uniform to lend official weight to the proceedings. The message would come from him, a galactic transit authority, agent making it impossible to dismiss his propaganda. On the day of the broadcast, Thrax stood in a studio overlooking Haven's main city. Behind him, the colony gleamed in afternoon sunlight. He wore every mark of rank and authority clearly visible. The recording began. "My name is Agent Thrax of the Galactic Transit Authority. I was sent to investigate the disappearance of thousands of passengers aboard human transport vessels. I am making this broadcast to report my findings to every citizen of every world simultaneously, because what I discovered is too important to be filtered through official channels." He gestured behind him at the city. "This is Haven, an unauthorized colony world. It is home to 7 million people from 47 species. They live in peace, prosperity, and freedom. And they came here because human ships offered them passage to a better life." The footage rolled. Interviews with colonists. Views of thriving cities. Statistics on resource abundance and population capacity. Comparisons with overcrowded stations and oppressive governments. The passengers did not disappear. They chose not to return because the life they found here is better than anything the existing galactic system could offer them. More footage showed democratic governance. Productive farms, excellent schools, advanced medical care, all provided to people who had nothing under council jurisdiction. There are 11 more colony worlds like this one. All hidden, all thriving, all home to people who were failed by the system that claims to represent them. Now came the accusation. The Galactic Council controls access to empty worlds through a bureaucracy that serves the wealthy and powerful. In the last century, 43 colonies were approved. 43. While billions live in overcrowded slums. While refugees die waiting for resettlement. While families watch their children suffer because they cannot access the abundant empty worlds that exist throughout the galaxy. Thrax's voice hardened. The humans discovered these worlds and chose to share them with those in need, regardless of wealth or political connection. They broke the law, but in doing so, they served justice. The footage showed children playing, families celebrating, communities thriving. I was sent to investigate a crime. Instead, I found 14 million people living better lives than they ever could under council governance. I found a system that works where the official system fails. I found hope where the galaxy offers only despair. Thrax stepped closer to the camera. Citizens of the galaxy, ask yourselves this question. If paradise exists and stands empty, who has the right to deny you access? Your answer to that question will determine our future. The broadcast ended with coordinates. Locations of all 12 colonies displayed openly. An invitation to anyone seeking a better life. The truth cannot be contained, Thrax concluded. Choose wisely. The transmission launched at 08:00 Galactic Standard Time. Within minutes, it propagated across every major communication network. Within an hour, it played on view screens across thousands of worlds. Within a day, it became the only thing anyone discussed. The Galactic Council chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted accusations and demands. Some called for military intervention. Others called for the chairman's resignation. Many sat in stunned silence. On Station Omega-7, protests began within hours. 6 billion people living in overcrowded conditions watched footage of spacious homes on Haven and demanded to know why they couldn't have the same. On Drazen worlds, underground movements demanding reforms suddenly had proof that alternatives existed. Citizens refused military assignments. Governments that had dismissed reformers as dreamers now faced populations demanding freedom. On Hiver colonies, mandatory work programs ground to a halt as workers refused assignments. If freedom existed elsewhere, why accept slavery at home? Even core worlds faced unrest as their poorest citizens rioted, demanding colonization rights. In the council chamber, small governments began breaking ranks. Aquelan delegates stood and made a formal declaration. My government recognizes the autonomous colonies and demands immediate colonization law reform. A Drazen delegate followed. We stand with the colonies. The system is broken. Fix it or we leave the council. One by one, representatives from smaller worlds joined them. They couldn't ignore their population's demands. Ambassador Williams watched the news feeds from Haven's administrative center. Beside her, Captain Mitchell and Agent Thrax stood in silence as the galaxy fractured along new lines. It's working, Mitchell said quietly. They're actually listening. The council won't give up without a fight, Williams cautioned. Corporate interests control too much. Military forces will still come. Let them come, Thrax said. His scales glinted in the light from the screens showing protests across 100 worlds. They'll find 14 million colonists who won't leave. And they'll find billions of citizens demanding the same opportunities. This isn't a military problem anymore. It's a political revolution. 3 weeks after the broadcast, the Galactic Council called an emergency session. This time, Ambassador Williams attended via holographic projection, standing tall before assembled representatives. The chairman's voice boomed through the chamber. The Terran Federation stands accused of the largest violation of colonization law in galactic history. How do you answer these charges? Williams smiled. Guilty as charged. We broke your laws. We'd do it again. And we're not stopping. Outrage erupted, but Williams continued over the noise. But here's what's changed. You can send your fleets. You can try to remove 14 million colonists by force. You'll face armed resistance and galactic condemnation. Or you can accept reality. The old system is dead. It died the moment citizens across 1,000 worlds saw what we built and demanded the same. The chamber fell silent. We're offering you a choice, Williams said. Fight a war you can't win, or negotiate a new colonization framework that actually serves people instead of corporations. Independent worlds, democratic governance, open immigration for refugees and those seeking better lives, shared resources instead of corporate monopolies. That's impossible, a delegate shouted. That would undermine everything the council represents. Good, Williams replied. Because what the council represents is a failed system that abandoned billions to suffer while hoarding resources. We're not asking for permission anymore. We're telling you how it's going to be. You can join us in building something better, or you can fade into irrelevance while we do it without you. The debate raged for hours. Some delegates walked out in protest. Others argued passionately for military response. But slowly, incrementally, the tone shifted, because outside the council chamber, the galaxy was changing. Station populations demanded colonization rights. Planetary governments faced revolutions. Corporate stocks crashed as investors realized their monopolies were ending. And on 12 colony worlds, 14 million people continued building lives that proved a better system was possible. 6 months after the broadcast, a compromise emerged. The Galactic Council would recognize the 12 colonies, independence in exchange for accepting council observers and agreeing to screen new colonists for security threats. A new colonization framework would be developed, prioritizing refugees and those in need over corporate interests. And most importantly, humans would share their survey data on habitable worlds, opening hundreds of new possibilities for settlement. It wasn't perfect. Corporations still controlled too much. Some governments refused to participate. But it was progress. Agent Thrax stood on Haven's surface, watching ships arrive and depart. Some carried new colonists seeking better lives. Others brought family members reuniting after long separations. In the plaza below, Jareth embraced his family. Delna and Presh had finally arrived, seeing the asterisk.